Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, a new bill by Washington Democrats may release prolific offenders earlier than they're supposed to be. Anybody surprised by this? But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
It is very, very clear that all the protests, all the statements, all the public officials slamming ICE has nothing whatsoever to do with ICE. There's a picture that's making the rounds of the interwebs today. It is Barack Hussein Obama putting a medal on Tom Homan for doing such a great job keeping the border secure and for deporting illegal aliens. Where did things change? How did things change? Yesterday, we played a clip from you from Barack Obama of him talking about how George Bush was wrong for leaving the border open and allowing so many illegal aliens in and everybody cheering for him. We played another clip of Bill Clinton basically sounding like President Trump when it comes to immigration. The Democrats know that the more and more and more they can make it seem like it's Nazis and gazpacho and whatever else it is, that the American public, they might actually move the needle. A new CBS poll actually shows they might be moving the needle since the Renee Good shooting, because Americans don't like to see how the sausage is made, and Americans are divided on whether or not she deserved to be shot, whether or not she was going to run down an ICE agent, whether or not it was deserved. I think most people agree the woman didn't deserve to die. But also, when a cop tells you to get out of the car and don't try to hit him with it. I think if we want to poll Americans, most of them would probably say, if you gave them a nuanced question, which they don't do in polls, that's how we feel about this. So if the goal is to demonize ICE, that's exactly what they're doing and trying to make everybody scared of ICE, as if ICE is going to come and arrest you just right off the street, kidnap you, and take you. Yesterday, as we came on air, we got an alert that there was ICE activity, reported ICE activity, alleged ICE activity at several Seattle public schools, and the schools went into lockdown. I spent all last night trying to find the actual reports of ICE vehicles that put the schools into lockdown, because my theory was yesterday, somebody saw an unmarked police car. Somebody saw a TSA car. Somebody saw something else. I reached out to the Seattle Police Department. Would you like to know what they said to me? Quote, "We did not receive any verified reports of ICE agents in the area of schools yesterday." So I dug, and a couple of news articles referenced social media posts. I printed them out. Here's what we have on Nextdoor. Now, I don't know if this was originally on Nextdoor or if this was on Facebook, but this is where I found it. Suspicious activity, potential ICE activity, unconfirmed at Roosevelt High. I don't think Roosevelt High was one of the schools that went into lockdown. Message from the administration this morning about 7:25. A staff member observed two vehicles in the parking lot parked in opposite directions from each other. A staff member took a photo of these vehicles. One of them approached her, asking why she took a photo. The man in the vehicle told her they weren't there to cause any harm. Shortly after the vehicles left, the staff member sent the photo to me, so this sounds like it came from a principal or something, and we alerted district leadership. The photo of the vehicle was posted to the Roosevelt High School yearbook Instagram account? Are you telling me that a bunch of kids posted a picture of unmarked police cars in a parking lot and triggered a lockdown from the, checks notes, Roosevelt High School yearbook Instagram account? Yes, that's not even their student newspaper. That's their yearbook. Student newspaper, at least they're covering a story. No. The yearbook posted this. Understandably, many are drawing connections to ICE and to recent events occurring regionally and nationally. Whoa, 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 whoa. What you are now saying is that there is no connection to ICE. The people were just drawing a connection. So hang on. The words we've used so far, unconfirmed and drawing connections. We cannot confirm if the vehicles in the parking lot at Roosevelt High School were affiliated with any agency or if they were conducting any official business. Okay. Do you know that at my synagogue from time to time, we have told the Seattle police they are more than welcome to do this, and they do from time to time. They sit in our parking lot when they're on break, when they're having dinner, or when they're just patrolling the area because they can keep an eye on things. They're out of the way. They're safe. They're keeping an eye on the synagogue. But every time I see them, you know what I do? I walk over. I say, hey, guys, is everything okay? Yep, everything's fine. Thank you for being here. Have a lovely evening. And if there's donuts from the synagogue from an event, I bring them some donuts or bagels or whatever else we have. In fact, I joked I should have one of those Krispy Kreme hot signs on the back of the synagogue so they know if I have donuts or not. Yes, I am not above giving anybody donuts. I give out donuts. That's what I do. That's what a normal person does. But we're talking about Seattle Public Schools, who banned police from the campuses after George Floyd. Okay. Let's keep going. If you or your colleagues see something that is disturbing or could potentially impact the safe and orderly operation of our school, please reach out to the administration to alert us of the concern by calling the main office. For additional information and resources, please see blah, 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 blah. The information Seattle Public Schools sent out prior to winter break. This includes an affirmation of safety for all students and families we serve. It also includes specific actions to take should you encounter anyone you believe may be on the Roosevelt High School campus acting in any capacity with federal immigration enforcement or other agencies. Do they send these out after a shooting? Do they send these out after gang activity? Do they send these out after drug dealing? Nope. But we're scared of the cops because that's what this really boils down to. Thank you to all those involved this morning and for supporting and caring our students and families. Update. It appears this was a citywide action today. Further information from Seattle Public Schools. Dear Seattle Public Schools families and staff, a shelter in place was initiated today at several schools in response to unconfirmed community reports of immigration and custom enforcement activity near multiple Seattle Public School campuses. Unconfirmed. Schools include Mercer International, Aki Karosi, Cleveland, Maple, Dearborn, and Beacon Hill. Wait a minute. None of that's even near Roosevelt High School. It's 20 minutes north from where those schools are. Each of those schools are at least 10 to 15 minutes away from each other. Did you see ICE knocking down any doors? Oh, by the way, ICE started a new website today. Wow, it's called. It actually highlights the worst of the worst. So I went looking. If they're in Seattle, I didn't see any arrests in Seattle. I didn't even see any in Washington today. A shelter in place was initiated in response to unconfirmed community reports of immigration and customs enforcements. Okay. All exterior doors are locked. Normal school operations continue inside the building. Out of an abundance of caution, many schools remain in the status for the entirety of the school day. Aki Karosi ended its shelter-in-place posture at noon. Cleveland ended its posture after lunch. SPS Safety and Security respond to have not seen the ICE presence, but will remain on alert. Okay, so here's something else. They claim in social media posts, they were waiting there for us. They were waiting for dismissal. Any schools get out yesterday at noon? Because last time I checked, schools get out at 2:30, 3 o'clock, 3:30. What are we talking about here? Were cops on campuses because they had a concern? Was ICE actually at the schools? We don't know. For all we know, some teacher or parent saw a couple cop cars in the parking lot, freaked out, and put a whole bunch of schools on lockdown. But the goal is to make you scared. And the goal is to distract, because if you are asking questions about what is happening here, you might not be focusing on what the Democrats are actually doing. Why do they want illegal aliens in the country? And it is clear by now because they have admitted it many, many times. They want them for a voting bloc. They want them reliant on government services, so they vote for Democrats. Otherwise, you wouldn't have legislation like this. When you talk about the police, I wonder if they would call the police if the person sitting in the parking lot was an illegal alien. Do you know there is new legislation which was brought back from last year by Democrats in Olympia that would allow non-U.S. citizens to become law enforcement officers and carry firearms? Senate Bill 5068 would permit individuals who are not U.S. citizens, including refugees, asylees, and holders of temporary work visas, to be hired as general authority or limited authority law officers, provided they are legally authorized to work under federal law. So how long until this becomes like commercial driver's licenses? How long until it's just, yeah, you know what? They're here. They just want to work. They just want jobs. So why don't we have the person who came here illegally and broke the law enforcing the law on U.S. citizens? If enacted, the legislation would remove longstanding requirements that police officers, corrections officers, and certain prosecutors be U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents, replacing them with a broader standard that includes any person authorized to work in the United States. Under SB 5068, non-citizens could be granted police powers, carry firearms, make arrests, and enforce state laws, all while upholding the U.S. Constitution and Washington state law on behalf of American citizens. It would also extend to corrections officers, because I can't see this going badly at all, fish and wildlife officers, and employees in prosecuting attorneys' offices, as long as they pass the same background checks, psychological evaluations, and certification requirements as citizens. Oh, yeah, I assume they're going to stick with this the same way they did with the commercial driver's licenses, right? Right? Because we haven't had problems with that. Now I want you to imagine an officer-involved shooting where you find out the officer who fired wasn't a citizen of this country and killed a citizen here in the U.S. The left wouldn't know what to do with themselves. Their heads would explode between all this. It's conflicting ideologies. What do we do? It's insane. The next level the Democrats want to take this to. They don't want borders at all. Why do you think they're talking about defunding ICE? They didn't talk about defunding ICE when you had people like Barack Obama in charge of the border. Even before we had certain government agencies that do this, they were talking about securing the border. I remember when politicians used to get in trouble for having an illegal immigrant who was their housekeeper or their gardener back in the 90s under Bill Clinton. I remember when that was the whole discussion. Democrats have given away the game. Why are they doing this? They are doing this to distract what their true interest is with illegal aliens, which is if you have an entire class that is protected by you and dependent on you, they will vote for you to continue the money train a-coming. Guaranteed. How do I know this? Because basically they've said it. How many times did we hear from the Democrats going back to their roots of the KKK back during the bad times? They would say things like, well, we need people to pick our crops. What American's going to pick our crops? Nothing's changed since slavery. Nothing's changed at all. This is your Democrat Party. Literally nothing has changed. But then you've got something else in the mix. Why are all these Democrat politicians in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, going against ICE? Well, because the more people ICE arrests, the more you find out the level of fraud. And also they want to distract from all the hearings on fraud that are going on Capitol Hill. Today, Nick Shirley was testifying up on Capitol Hill. Nick Shirley is the one behind the viral video with the Quality Leering Center in Minneapolis. Here's what he said.
I saw the video. We watched it, and it looked like there was a number of facilities like in the same building.
Yes. So in one building, there was, I believe, 3 daycares, and there was no children. And they were all receiving CCAP funding for separate daycares. There's one daycare we went to that one day it was closed by the government, and then that same day it was reopened underneath another name. And they both received CCAP funding.
He has some new videos out, by the way, which are allegedly daycares, and he goes in the middle of the day, and it's snow on the ground in Minneapolis, and guess what? There's no footprints in the snow. So nobody's going to your daycare in the middle of the day in Minneapolis? Oh, gets better than that. This is former Minnesota police officer Scott Drexler, who's saying the Democrats ignored all the signs of fraud. He was testifying with Nick Shirley today.
Mr. Dexter, could have something been done about this earlier?
Yes. As I stated in my opening testimony, in the years that I worked there, we identified how fraud was occurring, the loopholes that existed, and
What were some of the warning signs, Mr. Dexter?
Well, the fact that part of our job was to go and collect attendance records. We would find attendance records that were either incomplete, non-existent. Obviously, there were times we found them to be fabricated because they were given to us way later, and the same with billing records. They were allowed 30 days after the end of the billing period to submit billing records, so they were not immediately available to us, and it kind of allowed overpayments or double payments to be overlooked.
That's exactly what the Washington State Auditor said about the Department of Children, Youth, and Families here in Washington. Said the exact same thing. So why didn't Democrat officials do anything about this?
The highest funded centers were reviewed first, and many of those centers were referred to us through the public tip line or by licensing inspectors who observed activity inconsistent with a legitimate daycare operation. What we found was deeply concerning. Many of these centers operated out of commercial spaces with windows totally covered, no visible play areas, and very few children ever present. Through surveillance, data collection, and review of attendance and billing records, we repeatedly documented patterns of overbilling, non-existent attendance, and in some cases, children being signed in for hours they were never actually at the center.
Whoa. So you're saying all this stuff was being reported and nobody was doing anything about it? Funny you should mention that, because everybody I know says, Ari, how much of this is happening in Washington State? Well, let's go through what we already know. What we already know is the Washington State Auditor found that the Department of Children, Youth, and Family Services, these guys, for the last 4 years, did not provide provider info. So they couldn't look at the money these daycares were getting. So whenever they say, we did audits, you audited what? Empty air? Empty space? They found $500 million was at risk. They found $2 million was overpayments and waste and other abuses, which they don't call fraud. To me, that sounds fraudulent. Washington's Attorney General, Nick Brown, gave a very odd press conference yesterday, which is basically, look at me, everybody. I sued President Trump 52 times last year. Love me. Worship me. Look what I did. By the way, he's a fascist. I think he used the word fascist 3 times. I think he used the word racist 3 times. Well, I like that you're saying all that. That's all wonderful and good if I'm a Democrat. But how about all that fraud that's going on? Is your office looking into that at all? Chris Daniels from Como News asked him that very question.
You just talked about transparency and accountability, and you and I spoke a couple of weeks ago about DCYF and the allegations that have swirled around that agency. Since you and I talked, there's been an audit to suggest there were $500 million in 2 programs that did not have adequate controls, that there's been $2 million in overpayments to providers, and that the state auditor went 4 years without any sort of provider records. Given that information now, would you call for an outside audit of DCYF?
Well, my understanding from what the auditors talked about both in the past and I think as recently as today, that there's continuing audits that the auditor's office is going to do.
How do you audit anything if you don't have the paperwork? If you don't have the money trail? How do you audit anything? And the audits they did showed there were problems, so can you address that?
Our job is to make sure that our clients that we represent, DCYF and other state agencies, are taking those audits very seriously.
Wait a minute. They're your clients? We're your clients. The taxpayers are your clients. Yes, the agencies are his clients, but now you have the taxpayers against the agency. So we want them to take them seriously, but we're not actually going to investigate it because we're representing both parties here. Are you kidding me with this?
And do everything they can to make sure that they're not going to have that kind of problems moving forward. I do want to distinguish what we've seen.
Whoa, not going to have the problems moving forward. So you just said there are problems. Okay, let's keep going.
Heard about, there's, every state government, every state program that gets taxpayer dollars needs to work better with those dollars.
Oh, needs to work better with those dollars. So what you're saying is there might be fraud. Okay, you going to investigate it?
To make sure that we're treating those issues seriously. That is very different in my mind from allegations of fraud. And we want to make sure that there's a distinction between allegations of criminal fraud and allegations of, just how we best use our taxpayer dollars.
Oh, I see. It's totally different. Vanilla Ice would say theirs goes ding, 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 ding. Ours goes ding, 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 ding. It's that little itty bitty change. It's not the same.
So I will let the auditors speak for themselves. I think it's really important. And one of the things that makes Washington State great is that we have an independent auditor.
The auditor did say there were problems. So are you going to investigate the problems? Can we get an answer to the original question here?
Can do that work on behalf of the public. They issue very transparent and thorough reports on many, many state agencies.
They did. So are you gonna do anything about their report?
And I think that work needs to continue. And it's really important that the state agency leads, the governor's office, and the rest of us take those audits very seriously.
Have you had any fraud complaints coming to your office?
Sorry, say it again.
Have you had any fraud complaints come into your office?
Fraud complaints related to what?
Related to DCYF.
Oh, sure. I mean, we all watch the news, right? There's been a lot of reports on fraud that came into our office. Most of them are what I would view as pretty baseless allegations, but we take those allegations seriously. We work with our client agencies. We get a lot of intake in our office via email and calls alike. So there's been dozens of allegations made, and it's really important that we work with our clients to look at those and treat them seriously.
So you said they're baseless, but we need to treat them seriously. You said there's fraud, but it's not felony fraud. You said there's waste and abuse, but we're not actually going to investigate any of it. He knows what's going on. They are up to their eyeballs in this.
Come on.
Exactly. This is a word salad so deserving of a Kamala Harris Deep Thoughts Award, because that's what that was. So wait a second. He's not going to investigate it, even though the Washington State Auditor said there's problems. Even though DCYF was flagged as the most problematic organization, why do you think now they're talking about ICE nonstop? Because they don't want to be talking about this. Could not be more obvious. When we come back, my friends, so much more to discuss as the show continues, including a new bill that might release prolific offenders early, because that's all we needed from the Democrats. Plus, your calls and texts. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, download the KVI app and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way you never miss a minute of the show. Also, share it and rate it so that way your friends and everybody else know how awesome the show is. Looks like a lot of you want to weigh in on the fact that people who are not citizens of the U.S. may become law enforcement officers. We go right to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take call from Chris in Bonnie Lake. Chris, what's going on, man?
Hey, buddy. So I'm sure you remember. A lot of people may not remember. Remember, it was like what? Oh God, it might have even been 10 years ago, maybe not that long, where there was a cop was a Somali cop, and it had to have been Minnesota or somewhere, because who else would do this? And a woman called 911, and when they showed up, she came out to the cop car in her robe to talk to them, and he fired from the passenger seat through the door and killed her.
I don't remember this one. I'm not saying you're wrong, by the way, Chris, because there's so many crazy cases. So what I'm saying is that do me a favor, shoot me a link, arikvi.com, arikvi.com, send it over to me, okay, buddy?
I'll find it.
Good deal. Thanks, man. Take care. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Looks like some of you also want to weigh in on the Roosevelt High School yearbook account, seemingly triggering a lockdown on campuses. We go right to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take call from Ron in Tacoma. Ron, what's up?
Yeah, well, your last caller was right on the money. I was calling about that very same issue. And don't you find it very ironic that Democrats spend all their time trying to arm people that are not from this country and trying to take all the people from this?
Oh, that's a good point. So they want to arm everybody else but take away our guns. They want cops for themselves, but not for us. There's actually an interview I did yesterday with William Kirk from Washington Gun Law. It's up at kvi.com right now. You can find the whole interview there. It's also up on my social media, Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, The Hofffather on Twitter, where he makes the very same point, talking about all these insane gun laws the Democrats are trying to pass. Ron, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's going on?
Oh, nothing much. You know, you mentioned something about ICE and these protesters in your last segment. I was in Shoreline the other day, and I was riding around with a friend of mine, and I'm seeing protesters with signs basically along 145th and Aurora, and they're all saying ICE out and all this good stuff. And I'm thinking, get me away from here. I don't want no part of that.
Well, I was driving. I was on the highway the other day, and I saw them on the overpass over I-5 as you're heading north into downtown Seattle. I mean, the activists up there just have they have the cause du jour, whatever the cause. I see they traded in all their Palestinian flags for all the anti-ICE stuff and the anti-Donald Trump stuff. Fascinating. Really fascinating. Appreciate the call, Leonard. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show? Give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, Democrats looking to release prolific offenders early. No surprise here. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Do you remember Ruth Dalton? Ruth Dalton, she was the elderly dog walker who got carjacked in Seattle by a prolific offender, and he killed her. He killed her dog, and other dogs got loose, luckily were found. You remember all this? Yeah, this happened a couple of years ago. But now he might get out of jail early. Why? Because normally you have 3 strikes and you're out kind of laws, right? But now Democrats are saying, well, if they were under 18 before that, should it really count? I'm going to give you a case to illustrate this. One case, you guys tell me what you think. Is this a kid who, I don't know, stole a pack of gum from a convenience store or spray painted something on the side of a building? According to Coma News, 12-year-old boy was arrested in Seattle. Could face a judge after allegedly attacking a woman with a screwdriver and robbing her in the Central District. The incident occurred on January 17th at around 6:50 p.m. near 23rd Avenue South and South Jackson Street, where police were called for reports of a robbery. Upon arrival, officers found a 43-year-old woman who had been injured. According to the police report, the boy, who was wearing a hot pink ski mask, yes, way to be inconspicuous when committing a crime, assaulted the woman at the Amazon Fresh store. The report stated that the suspect attacked the victim, hitting her multiple times in the face with his hands. He then brandished the screwdriver, poked the victim in the face, striking her on her left cheek. That's trying to stab her. It may not have been a knife. He's trying to stab her. That is a violent crime. Do you think that's something that should be expunged from somebody's records? How about this for a minute? You're under 18, you're 17, and you commit a murder. You're 17, you beat somebody within an inch of their life. You're 17 and you rape somebody. Do you think that should be expunged? Is that what we're talking about here? Well, now Democrats are actually talking about doing this. Democrats in Olympia are advancing Senate Bill 5945 and House Bill 1239 that would significantly weaken Washington's approach to sentencing, incarceration, and early release for serious offenders. It allows individuals serving life without parole under Washington's 3 strikes law to seek resentencing if one of their prior strike offenses occurred before they turned 18. So you realize all of these people who victims and families may think are gone, done, finished, never to be seen again, might now be getting released. What is the Democrat fascination with releasing criminals? Is it they're so open-minded their brains have fallen out? Oh, we just feel bad for them. They didn't get hugged enough as a kid. Or because of the pigmentation of their skin, they must be innocent. 5945 allows individuals serving life without parole under Washington's 3 strikes law to seek resentencing, which means they can reapply for it. House Bill 1239 would increase earned early release to as much as 33% of nearly all crimes, dramatically reducing the amount of time offenders are required to serve behind bars across the criminal justice system. So it's not just the level 3 sex offenders who are rated by the FBI the most likely to reoffend, the worst of the worst, who are put on McNeil Island, that the Democrats want to release into the communities. It's basically every criminal they want to release because, at the end of the day, they don't believe jails should exist. Look, Katie Wilson, our very own socialist mayor here of Seattle, has written many articles, many posts about how she wants to abolish the police. Couldn't answer questions about it when she was on the campaign trail. So, you want to tell me what the real goal is here? They've said it out loud before. They love demonizing law enforcement, except for Brian Sicknick. Except for if it involves January 6th. Then they're a hero. Any other time, let's demonize them. Supporters frame these proposals as enlightened criminal justice reform. During a public hearing on House Bill 1239, the bill's prime sponsor, Representative Nicole Macri-Doglio, described the legislation as win-win. Win-win. So she thinks this is win-win legislation. You think the victims, families, survivors of those killed by violent repeat offenders think this is win-win to reopen life sentences, accelerating release timelines for people whose criminal histories already demonstrate a clear and ongoing danger to the public? Give me a break. During the hearing, Tracy Roberts, an assault survivor who registered to testify in opposition, was 5th out of 10 people cited to speak, and over the course of a full 2-hour hearing, she was the only registered speaker not called. I wonder why. I'm going down to Olympia to testify. I didn't want to put my name in advance because I know the Democrats will try and stop me from doing it. I'm going down there tomorrow. I'll be sitting there. See if they actually are going to let me speak. I'd be shocked if they actually do because I'm going to call them out. I'll pull the video of it. Melanie Roberts, friend of the show, granddaughter of homicide victim Ruth Dalton, testified in opposition to the bill as she spoke about the real-world consequences of releasing repeat violent offenders. Her public testimony was cut off mid-statement by Senator Noel Frame. You know what's crazy about this? Noel Frame is the one who keeps running around saying that she was a victim of sexual abuse. Wouldn't she want these people behind bars? Isn't she somebody who should want that? Or has her liberalism gotten the best of her and she doesn't want anybody in jail anymore? Proponents of these bills cite Supreme Court rulings and evolving brain science to argue that offenses committed before 18 should carry less weight. Okay. What about somebody who continued committing offenses? Otherwise, they wouldn't have 3 strikes. If you hadn't put them away for those 3 strikes, there would have been a third, which means another victim, another family affected. You don't know how badly. Because what prolific offenders do is continue to re-offend. The guy who killed Ruth Dalton was not somebody who made one mistake when they were a kid and reformed. And I say this from experience. I did something very dumb in a Camaro when I was 18 years old, ran from the cops, evaded pursuit when I was being chased. It's a miracle I didn't get hit with harsher sentences. But I learned my lesson, and guess what? Never did it again. Prolific offenders continue to reoffend, and they don't even care about the consequences. And now Democrats are trying to make this permanent. So, remember, say no to Senate Bill 5945 and House Bill 1239 because these are absolutely crazy. In fact, I hear from the legislature that they're getting people calling in, emailing in, registering like 10-1 in opposition of these things. So please keep up the pressure. And if you call the Washington State hotline for the legislature, please remember to be nice, even if you're leaving a voicemail. That goes for people at KVI too as well. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends, when we come back. Is there a deal on the table about Greenland? Are we going to be invading? Are we going to be tariffing them? Or was it all bluster just to make a deal? Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Speaking of slimy and corrupt, the world's leaders are all in Davos at the World Economic Forum. Yes, I really think this is like when the bad guys meet inside of Dr. Evil's lair. I really think the head of the World Economic Forum just has little buttons where he could push them and their chairs fall back and the person falls into a fire pit. That is, of course, except for President Trump, because when he shows up, he sets the whole place on fire. What was the big topic? Is he going to make a deal about Greenland? Are we going to invade? I saw a great meme last night. It's that Marco Rubio sitting on the couch looking all sad like he always is. But somebody put him in a Rebel Snow uniform from Empire Strikes Back with Hoth when they're fighting the Empire at Echo Base. It's one of the best ones I've seen yet because the tagline above it says, Marco Rubio when he finds out he has to go fight in Greenland, which I thought was fantastic because Greenland has the ice. Iceland is very nice. Yes, so I'm told by Coach Gordon Bombay and his sort of girlfriend from Iceland in that second Mighty Ducks movie.
I bet it's nice.
Yes, see? Young Zach says it's nice in Greenland. Right, Greenland? No, Iceland. He means Iceland. Okay.
Greenland looked fine enough from the air, but I did look at it and I thought, God, that looks like mine.
Oh, I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Anywho, so are we going to invade? Are we going to tariff them? There's something you need to understand. Greenland wanted to move away from the Danes, from Denmark, and there was talk about them separating. What Donald Trump does may not be nice, but it seems to be effective. If he doesn't like something, he talks about it, he slams it, he insults it, he threatens it, and then people sometimes do what he wants. And then guess what? They're his best friend, Marco Rubio. Little Marco, he's the worst. I'm better. Now he's like his right-hand guy. I don't think J.D. Vance is the one helping run the country. Marco Rubio has so many jobs, I don't know how J.D. Vance can keep up. J.D. Vance needed a whole nother thing to keep him occupied. He's having another kid. So, right here, we got the guy who he didn't. Yeah, exactly. We got the guy who he used to call Little Marco is now one of his most trusted members of his cabinet. Basically, we're seeing the same thing play out right here. Because today, when President was at Davos, here's what he said.
We'll see what happens. The military's not on the table. I don't think it'll be necessary. I really don't. Okay. I think people are going to use better judgment, use their best judgment, and I don't think that will not be necessary.
Okay. So we're not invading Greenland. Good news, young Zach. You don't have to go fight for this administration.
The amount of wars I've almost had to go fight.
That's if you follow everything on social media. Zach has almost had to go to Iran. Zach has almost had to go to Gaza. Zach has almost had to go to Ukraine. Zach has almost had to go to Greenland, Russia.
Ukraine, I guess.
Ukraine, Russia, same thing. How many other wars did we almost
Venezuela.
Send? Venezuela. Wait, we don't know you weren't there that weekend. I don't know what you were doing that
I don't know where I
weekend.
was.
Anyway, so what's the deal actually going to look like?
Well, we have a concept of a deal. I think it's going to be a very good deal for the United States, also for them. And we're going to work together on something having to do with the Arctic as a whole, but also Greenland. And it has to do with the security, great security, strong security, and other things.
The market, 600 points, getting back a lot of some of the nervousness we had in the last couple of days. The tariffs are off. Nothing happens on February 1st.
No, we took that off because it looks like we have pretty much a concept of a deal.
A deal of ownership, a deal?
Well, it's a little bit complex, but we'll explain it down the line. But the Secretary General of NATO and I and some other people were talking, and it's the kind of a deal that I wanted to be able to make.
Where does Denmark, did they weigh in on what they want, what they would agree to?
Well, I assume they did because he very much represents, he's a strong leader. Mark, you know Mark, Rutte. And he, I assume he's been speaking to them. He's been speaking to all of them.
Are mineral rights involved? Is ownership involved? Did the Golden Dome sway people?
I don't want to say yet, but
the Golden Dome was very compelling today when you talked about that.
Yeah, the Golden Dome, and they're going to be involved in the Golden Dome, and they're going to be involved in mineral rights, and so are we.
It's not specific enough to know at this point how long this lasts, whether it's
forever.
Forever.
It'll be forever.
For Greenland at this point.
Yeah. Forever.
That's staggering.
That's better than a 99-year.
This is what, 2 hours after.
It's better than the Obama deal with the famous Iran nuclear deal with a 9-year deal. No, this is forever. This is a long term.
You want my theory? All of Trump's blustering pushed Denmark back together with Greenland when they were thinking about separating. In fact, President Trump even said this during his speech at Davos.
All we want from Denmark for national and international security and to keep our very energetic and dangerous potential enemies at bay is this land on which we're going to build the greatest golden dome ever built. We're building a golden dome.
And it'll protect Greenland, and it'll protect Canada, and it'll protect a lot of other places and the Arctic, and keep away the Chinese and keep away Russia. So if we created a deal, we don't have to buy them. We don't have to invade them. Maybe all the blustering was just to make a deal. This is why we haven't discussed this much, because you always see how it shakes out. It looks like the stock market's pretty happy we're not going to war, as is young Zach, because he doesn't have to go get dressed up in the Hoth Echo Base uniform with Marco Rubio to go invade Greenland. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends, including, did your tax dollars pay for a poll to lie and say the GOP supports an income tax? Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, what is Pramila Jayapal doing in Minnesota? And what's this about a Democrat bill to kill initiatives? But before we get to any of that, I saw an article emailed to me by the Seattle Times, because no matter what, I'm still on their email list, that says, headline, guess who supports a millionaire's tax? Republicans. Washington poll finds. Right off the bat, I go, I don't believe you. I have never met a Republican who supports an income tax. I have met Republicans who say for property taxes, if it goes to roads and first responders and they actually show up, I'm okay with something like that, even though I hate the idea of a tax, but you got to pay for this stuff somehow. If you are one of those people who thinks there should be no taxes whatsoever, that's fine, but then answer me the question about how to pay for those other items, because I know a lot of people won't probably pony up for that. Now, I'm not advocating for tax policy and that we should have taxes. I hate taxes. I actually had this thing. My father, this is all my father's fault, by the way. I'm going to put this right here. When I was a little kid, it was career day or whatever it was in like first grade, kindergarten. So I go, I don't know what I want to be. And my dad goes, why don't you be a tax collector who doesn't collect taxes? I said, well, what do I do? Like, yes, I was literally having this conversation with my father when I'm like first grade. So what do I do with that? He put me in a little suit, gave me a whole bunch of tax forms, and I carried them around all day. And I just answered. I didn't know what any of this meant. He broke it down for me. He did the classic parent thing. He's like, here, you want some ice cream? Okay. And then he took a giant spoonful. He goes, I'm the government. Here's the, you don't get no ice cream no more. And I'm like, oh, that sounds bad. Okay, cool. This sounds great. All right. Yes, I was brainwashed from a very young age. Anyway, so Republicans supporting a millionaire's tax? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Because what have we heard out of every single Republican? No way in hell. Plus the picture. The picture with the article has Senator John Braun, the Republican leader in the Senate. You picked this picture. John Braun most certainly does not support an income tax. We've had him on the show. Every press release that dude sends out says no millionaire's tax. What the hell are they talking about? So a listener sent me something fascinating, because the polling company that did this I've never heard of before. So did a little digging. It's called DHM Research, who did the poll. They were bought in 2021 by a political PR, public relations firm called Quinn Thomas. Quinn Thomas, according to the Washington State Checkbook, has done over $3 million in business from the state of Washington in fiscal year 2023. Did our own tax dollars pay for a survey to support a narrative to tax us more? Because you can make a poll have the results of whatever you want them to say. They're called push polls, where they only give you like 3 answers. So watch me get the response out of you that they wanted. Do you identify as Democrat or Republican? Republican. Or prefer not to say, right? Always got to put that one in there. Prefer not to say. Okay, Republican. Do you believe that state dollars should be used to provide roads, bridges, blah, 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 blah? Yes, absolutely I do. Okay, would you be willing for your tax dollars to go towards roads and bridges and whatever? Yes. Hey, look, you're in favor of taxes. Look, you are now a Republican who's in favor of taxes. That's what a push poll is. Real simple. Now, I have another question here. Why are we giving $3 million to a PR firm? If you want to sell something, the Democrats are more than able to take from the Democrat Party, from their donations, and spend it on PR, pushing their stuff. Why are taxpayer dollars being spent on a PR firm? You ever see the movie Dave? Okay, for those of you who haven't seen the movie Dave, Kevin Kline is a presidential impersonator.
Felt like you looked at me when you said that.
Well, because you're little. You're young. You don't know these things. Have you seen the movie, Dave?
No.
No, of course not. Okay. So, Kevin Kline, Sigourney Weaver. What's the best part of the movie? What happens is Kevin Kline is an impersonator of the president. The president has a stroke while having an affair. It's a whole thing. Yes, that's a young Laura Linney. You can see there in that scene right there. And what happens? He becomes a puppet president for the people who don't want to lose power. So what happens is he finds out that money was cut for a children's homeless shelter. So what does he do? He calls his buddy, the accountant, the neighborhood accountant, brings him to the White House and says, hey, can you help me fix the budget? Bribes him with knockwurst. So they sit down and do it. And the accountant's best line is, if I did my books like this, if I ran my business like this, I'd be out of business. So they sit down and he goes, there's all these ways you could cut. Look at all these things you could cut. So then you go to a cabinet meeting. He's in the cabinet meeting. He invites the press. Kevin Kline invites the press. The people who are the puppet masters don't know he's going to do this. And what does he do? He starts asking every member of the cabinet about things you just go, hey, these are ridiculous. So one of the things he mentions is you're spending money to make people feel good about a car they already bought. That's kind of what this sounds like to me. You're using our taxpayer dollars to push a policy, whether it's popular, whether it's unpopular. Why should our taxpayer dollars be going to a PR firm, especially $3 million worth? The easy answer is they shouldn't be. But this is the kind of thing they want the millionaire tax for, so they can pay for the PR firm. Here's something else. Let's take DHM Research. DHM Research also got a lot of money from the government. In fact, $1 million DHM Research got. Put them together, that's $4 million they're getting. So the Democrats want to pull on the millionaires tax. Well, we want the gravy train to keep on rolling. So why don't we make sure that this poll says exactly what the Democrats want it to say? Okay, my favorite was actually, somebody did a poll on the Jewish community years ago, a survey on the Jewish community, and it said there are no Jews in South Seattle. So hang on a second. Seward Park, which I know what some people call it, Jeward Park, okay? Yes, I can say that. All right? You're saying there's no Jews in South Seattle. Just making sure I got that with all the synagogues and everything else that's down there. Yes, somebody in the Jewish community who commissioned this poll. You can make a poll, say anything you want it to say. You really, really can. You think these companies aren't going, wait a minute. If they have to cut things, what are some of the first things they're going to cut? Oh, wait a minute. Maybe their PR firm. Maybe they're polling and not spend the money. We got to make sure this says they want a millionaire tax. You know, Florida doesn't have these problems. You know why Florida doesn't have these problems? Because so many people are moving from all over the country to Florida that they don't have these. I was in Target the other day. My daughter wanted a volleyball. So I'm in Target, and I'm commenting on how expensive things are. And some lady next to me, she goes, where I'm from, the prices aren't this expensive. I said, where are you from? And she goes, Texas. They don't charge. I go, what are you doing here? She says, I'm a nurse who's in town working for the hospitals because they pay a lot of money here, but I'm going to leave as soon as I can. I said, yeah, go back to free America. I understand. I totally understand. And then I told her to download the KVI app and subscribe on whatever. No, I didn't. Okay. Anyway, so what happens here is that if you have a ton of people moving to your area, you're going to get a lot more money. We have every single day 40 taxpayers are leaving Washington, according to the recent surveys. Every single day, which means you're losing taxpayers and you're losing businesses. Remember how we told you Microsoft, Amazon, all these other companies are making cuts? Well, now we've got another one for you. Meta, that's the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, is permanently laying off workers in Washington, according to the Washington Employment Security Department. Don't forget, Meta's also the ones that bailed on a big planned campus expansion out in Bellevue. This is just the latest shoe to drop. The positions to be eliminated are within the company's Reality Labs division, which specializes in virtual reality and augmented reality software. It also produces hardware such as headsets and smart glasses. Okay, so I'm going to put this out to the audience. Is this because people aren't buying them smart glasses? Or is this because they want to make a cut and they don't really need this stuff anymore? I haven't seen a lot. I don't think the smart glasses ever really caught on. I haven't seen a lot of that. Virtual reality, I don't see the kids so much with the headsets. I know it was a big phase like, 7-8 years ago, my kids were really obsessed with it. I don't see them so much anymore. It's a novelty. It's an expensive novelty. And there's also like the discount VR where you put your cell phone inside the thing and it's right there, and it's terrible. It's awful. That lasted for half a minute. So is it that the program isn't popular, or is it, hey, there's a bit of a crunch with the tech stuff? Maybe we cut the things that aren't performing like PR firms. Maybe this is where we cut that kind of stuff. So the layoffs in Washington are part of 1,500 layoffs within the division nationwide, according to the Wall Street Journal. Now, they're also talking about a total of 15,000 layoffs coming to the tech sector after that. Is this something else where people aren't using Facebook anymore? Look, people are using Instagram. They're definitely using Instagram more. Facebook is mom book or parent book or whatever you want to call it. The older folks are not so much on the older folks are on the Facebook. The younger folks, not so much. I think my kids had to sign up for an account because they were doing something with video games, but they don't do the Facebook. They do the WhatsApp. They do the Instagram. But we've discussed how many layoffs there have been in our area. And in fact, it's getting a lot worse. Washington State's unemployment rate saw an uptick in December of 2025. Wait a minute. It's going up? I thought all these businesses want to stay. I thought all these businesses want to be here. Now, they claim despite this increase, the state added an estimated 9,000 jobs in December. Yeah, is this going to be one of these things where we find out Nick Brown hired another 700 attorneys for his office like Bob Ferguson did? The chief labor economist for the Employment Security Department noted that job growth in December increased following a drop in November. Or maybe it's seasonal jobs. Maybe it's because it was December and it was the holiday season and people needed to hire help. Do you think maybe that's what it was? So even when people are getting seasonal jobs in December, you still have a rise in unemployment? The leisure and hospitality sector led the private industry gains with an increase of 2,900 jobs, followed by the information sector, which added 2,200 jobs, and private education and health services, which grew by 2,100 jobs. The private education one is interesting to me. So what you're saying is that more kids are dropping out of public schools and going to private schools, so they need more teachers? The state experienced a net loss of 6,600 jobs from December 2024 to December 2025, marking a 2% decrease. Oh, right. They had to start cutting stuff because of their overspending, which meant jobs. Wait. That's the state, not the feds. I thought President Trump was the devil incarnate for cutting all those jobs. I thought he was evil for cutting the waste, fraud, and abuse. You mean the Washington government was also cutting jobs around here? The number of unemployed individuals in Washington rose from 186,157 in November to 192,851 in December. In the Seattle, Bellevue, Everett region, unemployment increased from 106,275 to 111,845 during the same period. So, do you think that's maybe all those layoffs we've been discussing for months now affecting the unemployment rate? I think that's exactly what's going on. I think these tech jobs are starting to catch up with the sector. Oh, I know. Let's just tax everybody to pay for the lost income, right? I'm sure there are tons of Republicans that would support that. You know what? I got an idea. Let's check in with Travis Couture. He was speaking in the legislature earlier this week.
First it was tax the billionaires, now it's tax the millionaires, and tomorrow it'll be tax the thousandaires. It'll be the rest of us. Voters wholly in Washington state do not trust. If the legislature passes an income tax, that one, it will remain on millionaires or anyone else who is the rich. On top of that, we're going to get capital flight, much like we got when we passed the capital gains tax. Everyone remembers Jeff Bezos moving to Florida. The innovators, the job creators move out of our state because of things just like this. We just passed the largest tax increases in state history, and we are still facing multi-billion-dollar deficits. It is a spending problem. We have an addiction. You don't solve an addiction by giving people more booze and drugs to consume. This is a false promise. Voters do not want it. It's unconstitutional, and no one trusts that it will remain on just millionaires.
Thank you for the Republicans for splicing that together and adding the fun little music so it could be very enjoyable. But, yeah, that really sounds like Republicans are in favor of an income tax, right? You want to know how Bob Ferguson is trying to sell this millionaire tax? You ready for this? Let's go to his social media. Ready where he's talking about the millionaire tax? We can make this short session long on affordability and a real difference from Washingtonians. A one-time $200 household utility bill credit for 125,000 families. Wow! For one time, we're going to get a $200 credit. That means all the other years, it's going to be expensive, which means your $200 credit will be gone in about 10 seconds.
Gosh, I don't even know where to start spending that.
Right, exactly. 200 whole dollars. Well, do I pay for gas taxes or which taxes do I pay for? Wait a minute. Wait a minute, Bobby. Wait a minute, Turd Ferguson.
I could start paying my tabs.
No, that won't cover my tabs. That's for sure. That will not cover my tabs.
It'll cover mine.
All right, there we go. Okay. So, hang on a second. $200 household utility bill credit. Weren't you the one who tried to hide the fact that the Climate Commitment Act was increasing the prices of the utilities? And didn't you bribe everybody with $200 checks last time so that they would vote to knock down the repeal of the Climate Commitment Act? Oh, we're doing the exact same thing. We're using taxpayer dollars to bribe taxpayers so they will give you more money later, hoping people are dumb enough to fall for this again. So you're going to tax us to use our money to pay for whatever you want in the future? You think they didn't use our tax money to pay for a poll to say that their millionaires, a.k.a. income tax, was popular with Republicans? What these guys do is lie. And like I said yesterday, you know why they lie so brazenly? There's what, 8 million people here in Washington? How many of them listen to the Ari Hoffman Show? I wish every single one of them did. But it looks like a whole bunch of people who live here and vote here are very, very left. So they just listen to the Democrats, and the Democrats say, I'm going to give you $200. And they're not listening. They're not understanding the fact that that money, they're just getting their own money back and not even close to what they put in the first place. So
it's kind of like you play a slot machine and it makes a big hoopla when you win 15 cents, but you played $1.
Exactly.
But it's a lot of lights and music for the 15 cents you just quote won.
Exactly what it's like. That's what we're going to call it now. The government casino. That's what it's going to be. Yes, brought to you by Turd
the Shaggy
Ferguson's
Head Bandit.
Brought to you by Turd Ferguson's Casino.
Turd Ferguson.
I am definitely feeling a meme coming on tonight. Yes, that is for sure. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, Democrats don't want you weighing in on the democratic process. They got the initiative killer. We'll tell you what it is when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, download the KVI app and sign up on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way you never miss a minute of the show. Also remember to rate and share. That way other people and your friends will see how awesome the show is. Well, Democrats really don't like the initiative process. You know, your voice to undo their insane policies. How many things have they tried to stop the initiatives? Okay, let's go through what they did last time. So last time they demonized Republicans. Okay, we know that. They demonized Brian Haywood, the founder of Let's Go Washington. Oh, he's just a millionaire, a billionaire who doesn't want to pay taxes. Okay, that didn't work so well. Then what did they say? They tried to pay off signature gatherers to go to other states with more money. Then they created a hotline to report signature gatherers. Do I got that? Oh, wait, hang on. This is all just last time. Then they started setting up protests next to where signature gatherers are. Okay, I think I covered everything from last time, right? This time, what'd they do? They paid off the signature gatherers again. They did that. But what else did they do? They started assaulting the signature gatherers. And Bob Ferguson and Steve Hobbs and Nick Brown did nothing about it. Nothing at all. Do I have that right so far? So they escalated and keep escalating and keep escalating. But Let's Go Washington once again was successful. And once again, there are going to be two initiatives on the ballot that you get to vote on. One, protecting parental rights, so you know what's going on with your kids in schools. Two, keeping boys out of girls' sports. It's that simple. Democrats ain't happy about this. They don't like all the money. They don't like all the time. They don't like all the effort they have to go through. So instead, what are they doing? They're trying to kill the initiative process. Now, mind you, I got issues with the initiative process. Here's my first issue. My first issue is, first, you have to get the thing approved. Then the Attorney General gets to write the title of the initiative and decide how it's going to work on the ballot. So remember last time you had to vote yes to get rid of things. Remember, vote yes, pay less. You remember that whole thing? Okay. Then, once you collect it, then, once there's an election on it, then the court decides on it. That's pretty stupid. If you guys want to address this, you know what it should be? Like the recall process. Right now, if you want to recall somebody, it has to go to a judge first. So for an initiative, go to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court can say yes or no, and I know a lot of you are screaming at the radio right now going, Ari, are you insane? The Supreme Court is a whole bunch of lefties. Yes, but if they're going to kill it, I'd rather they kill it early rather than kill it later after we spent all that time, money, and effort. This is me personally. If you disagree with me, you give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. But that's not what this bill does. By the way, Democrats, you want to do something about this? Just give it to the Supreme Court. And let that, we would say, yeah, we'd rather know in advance if it's constitutional or not before going to all the effort and finding out later. Wait, I shouldn't give them ideas. Okay, here's what they want you to do now. Senate Bill 5973 is requiring initiative and referendum sponsors to submit at least 1,000 voter signatures at the time of filing before the state issues an official ballot title. Now, you may think, well, they raised 500,000 signatures. What's the big deal? Why is it so hard to get 1,000 of them? Well, it's another step. It's another obstacle. It's another problem. And they have to be confirmed by the Secretary of State. Now, Steve Hobbs, to his credit, has been okay through this. I give him a C. Why? Because he never followed through on any of these threats against signature gatherers. You can put all the posts you want up on Facebook. That doesn't mean anything. The bill also tightens rules around paid signature gatherers. It would prohibit paying signature gatherers based on the number of signatures collected while allowing compensation structures not tied to signature totals. So here's the problem with this. The reason signature gatherers are motivated is because they actually have to get a certain number of signatures to get paid. If you switch this over to a per hour basis, I can sit on my butt at the local Safeway and not collect any signatures, and I still get paid. You see the problem here? It also authorizes private individuals to bring civil lawsuits on behalf of the state if they believe the compensation rules have been violated. So that means, let's say one group says, all right, guys, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pay you a lot more per signature. We're going to pay you a lot more per signature. So that's going to be more than per hour. We're going to do that. Okay? Are you cool with that? Yes, I'm cool with that. All right. So now we're both cool with it. But if somebody finds out and reports it, now they get to report you for it with $10,000 per violation. And what that means is even if it isn't true, what they're going to do is just hit you with violation, which now you have to spend the legal time disproving. Why would anybody want to be a signature gatherer? Why would anybody want to do that at all? So that's where we're at. That's where we're at. They want to kill the initiative process. Now, what I find entertaining is Jim Walsh has created his own bill. His own bill is that any legislation anybody wants to pass in any chamber of the Washington legislature needs 1,000 signatures in support before it goes. Now, you know you can file anything you want in the Washington legislature. They're not all going to get a hearing. Can you imagine if you actually had to get support for it? These politicians, Democrats, Republicans, they love having their name on things. Look what I did. Look what I tried to do. Most of them never get a hearing. Most of them never get signed. Can you imagine how much less trouble they could get into? Now, I don't think this is going to pass because the Democrats love passing insanity. But if you want to say no to Senate Bill 5973, that's the one that's the initiative killer. And I believe they're getting 10-1 against right now, which is great. You call the Washington State Legislature hotline at 1-800-562-6000. That's 1-800-562-6000. If you can't remember the bill, you just say the initiative killer. And you will be able to leave a message. They don't have live operators this year, probably because they don't actually want to hear from you, but they do have to record the calls. And we do want to hear from you on KVI, so we go right to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Dave in Colorado. Dave, what's going on?
Hey, guys. Well, yeah, you know, it's legendary the way the government people will mistreat people who are trying to use the government process and get petitions signed.
Yeah, exactly right. That's exactly what they're doing here. I mean, aside from the assaults and everything else, they just don't want to hear about it. They don't want to talk about it, and they don't want to have anybody telling them they're wrong. Look, I don't like being wrong. I have to do corrections from time to time, but you still got to do them. And here, the Democrats don't want to even see the effects of the awful things that they've caused to happen to people.
So I have an invitation for California residents to do what I did and move to New Hampshire. I'm visiting Colorado right now. But I moved to New Hampshire 20 years ago where we could concentrate people who would keep the government from doing things like this.
Well, see,
So,
there's a flaw in your thinking there, Dave. Not to diminish you, but here's the problem: is that how many people are actually going to get involved when they move? So many of my friends who have moved from Washington to Florida or to Texas or anywhere else, I say, guys, you may be going, but realize it flipped to one way. It could flip another way, and the Democrats don't just give up. You got to stay involved. So I applaud your efforts to make sure that you're holding back the tide, but realize not everybody who moves gets involved. And the reason Washington's having the problems it's having right now is because 1 million Californians moved to Washington so they could still vote their conscience, but escape the bad things they voted for in the past. Dave, don't forget to download the KVI app. Don't forget to listen to KVI.com and subscribe on all the platforms. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, what is Pramila Jayapal doing in Minnesota? Why is she hanging out with Tim Walz? Did I miss something? Did she move? Oh, please, God, one can only wish. We'll give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder to check out KVI.com because every night I'm bored. I write articles. They go up there early, even before we get to them on the show. So if you want to have an advanced sneak peek of what we're going to be talking about that day, make sure to go to KVI.com. Check out the articles over there. And while you're there, sign up to become a KVI insider because there are some events we are planning. And that way you will be the first to know all about them. Well, let's switch gears a little bit here. Pramila Jayapal, the representative from Hamas, decided to take a trip on over to Minneapolis. What is she doing in Minnesota? Apparently making selfie videos with Tim Walz.
Hey, I'm here with Governor Tim Walz in Minnesota. We are so excited that we have 28 members of Congress from all over the country here to stand up with you, Governor. You have been such a strong champion to say that what is happening in Minnesota is absolutely not right. Tell us.
Well, Congresswoman, thank you. And to everybody out there across the country, thank you for standing with Minnesota. We're here today in beautiful, peaceful St. Paul, a place that we care for our neighbors, we care for everyone. This assault that we're seeing is traumatic, but what I keep telling Minnesotans, we're not alone in this fight. We're on the right side of justice, the right side of history. Please keep thinking of Minnesota. Send us your thoughts, prayers, and any help you can. And a huge thank you to members of Congress who are actually doing the job. In a few short months, this will be Madam Chair, and we'll start straightening this country out.
Let's do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Grateful.
Okay, you want to be horrified? Thank you, Zach. Appreciate that. You want to be horrified? Madam Chair. Oh, you want her back in charge? So do you know what he's talking about? Her little committee, these oversight committees that they have in Congress. Right now, the Republicans are in charge. Well, if the Democrats get back
There's
to
plenty
majority,
of oversight.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. If the Democrats get back in charge, guess who becomes the committee chair? So what the Democrats did is they went out there and had field hearings in Minnesota. Do you know what a field hearing is? Nothing. Meaningless. A press stunt. They're not official hearings, and they're like, look at us. Look at us. We're having hearings. So, activists, how's it been? We hate Trump. See, everybody in Minneapolis hates Donald Trump. That's what they were doing. So she's out there doing that. Last time I checked, does she represent Minnesota? No, not at all. Does she represent?
How about no?
Thank you, Dr. Evil. Does she represent Minneapolis? I'm just checking here.
How about no?
Exactly. So what is she doing there? Oh, right. It's about the votes. Also, here's something else. Tim Walz. Isn't he the guy that called out the National Guard that shot people with paintballs on their own doorsteps for being outside during COVID? And the answer is yes. There's video of it. You see those Hummers driving down the street with all the National Guard units walking with them, firing paintballs at people who are out on their porches during COVID. So really, guys, can we be real about this? Now, of course, what are we back to here? Oh, they're just peaceful protesters, right? Super, super peaceful protesters. This is the new lie we're back with. Yes, it's 2020 all over again.
So first, I want to start with this protest in a church. We were talking here on the panel about whether that is going too far, disrupting a service. What do you think?
Well, I haven't reviewed the entire video for that, but I will just say that the vast majority of protesters, like 99.9%, have been engaging in peaceful protest.
Oh, have they now? Have they now? That's why they're assaulting ICE officers. That's why assaults on ICE agents has gone up thousands of percentage points. I haven't reviewed the entire video. Give me a break. All you need to do is watch the first 10 seconds of it. Bunch of people went into a church, just walked into the church, disrupted services. Right there, illegal. Violation of the FACE Act, violation of the KKK Act. Already you've got Don Lemon and his merry band of idiots dead to rights. The spin is in full effect, my friends. Would you like to hear what Hakeem Jeffries, discount Barack Obama, what happens when you order Barack Obama on Wish.com, what he said about all this?
That's common sense. ICE should not be able to storm houses of worship, hospitals, and schools. That's common sense.
Whoa. So hang on. I just want to clarify here. ICE should not be able to storm houses of worship, but protesters should be able to storm houses of worship, right?
Yeah, but they're peaceful.
Oh, yes, mostly peaceful. That's why those kids are crying in the church, right? Fiery, but mostly peaceful. That's what we're talking about here? Are you kidding me with this? Are you kidding me with this? This is all I'm saying. Everybody has lost their ever-loving minds, but it's to distract from the fraud. You know the distractor in chief? Ilhan Omar. So during one of these field hearings that has basically nothing to do with anything, no legally binding information at all, she's sitting next to Ilhan Omar, who is now being investigated of how her net worth on a congressional salary jumped from nothing to $30 million. And Pramila Jayapal is nodding along as Ilhan Omar says this.
The one place where we thought we would never experience this is the U.S. states.
Ah, charming. Ah, she's so lovely, isn't she? There we go. So basically this whole field hearings business was just to get the cameras on you so you could say something like that so it would go viral and you get all the attention. And now, look, nobody's talking about fraud anymore. Nobody's talking about the allegations against you. Instead, they're talking about ICE and what you said. This is all a distraction from Nick Shirley exposing fraud after fraud after fraud, and then state auditors digging in, finding more fraud, and Republicans finding more fraud, and it tying back to Ilhan Omar. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. While Democrats have a war on law and order and our police officers, Republicans in the Washington legislature are trying to do something to stop all that and keep them safe and keep law and order. I'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. law enforcement and law and order and trying to jeopardize your public safety. It's nice to know that our Republican friends on our side of the aisle are trying to defend it. Joining us now to discuss, Representative Peter Abarno. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Ari, thank you for having me on.
Always a pleasure. So why don't you tell me about this bill that you and Representative Walsh are working on?
Well, 3 years ago, you may remember, the House passed and it became law, House Bill 1169. And what that did is it eliminated any meaningful financial accountability for criminals, whether it's committing domestic violence, child sex crimes, or, assaults and crimes against people. It allowed criminals to not be held accountable and then created this fund that, the legislature, had this pie in the sky idea that they would actually fund and didn't. And then over the last couple of years, I just continue to meet with victim advocacy groups, especially domestic violence survivors who are saying, we don't have money in the court system or through any organization to really take care of victims. And the state of Washington continues to choose criminals over victims. So what this bill does is says, look, you commit domestic violence, you commit these horrible crimes against persons in our community, we're not going to let you get scot-free away from having to pay these illegal obligations. You're going to pay them, and they're going to go to the people who need them most, which are the victims.
So now that we have something like this, that makes a lot of sense, and you hear Democrats all the time talking about the victims, or domestic violence, how likely is something like this to pass? Or are the Democrats standing in the way of this as well, saying, oh, you're just targeting people of color, or you're just targeting these people whose daddy didn't hug them enough, or whatever the case may be?
Well, in my private conversations with Democrats, they like the bill. They like the fact that it's focused on certain crimes that are crimes against persons. And I imagine they're hearing the same things that Republicans are hearing on the streets and in our communities, which is Washington has to stop giving preferential treatment to criminals. And the people who are getting left behind in the court system right now are the victims who are left without any treatment, without any court navigators, without any services. So I'm hopeful. It's not scheduled for a hearing yet, but I'm hopeful that House Bill 2430 this year will get a hearing and will move forward and at least take a small step to trying to right our court system and start prioritizing victims.
I don't know how anybody could in their right mind be against this, but we've been surprised before. We're talking with Representative Peter Abarno of Chehalis about the legislative session. What other items should people be keeping their eyes on if they're interested in law and order this session?
Well, there's a lot to focus on when we're talking about law and order. A lot of it still is there's this continued sentiment by House Democrats that they, should be choosing criminals. Criminals are, the victim. I mean, Ari, you've heard this before on the House floor in some of these debates where, House Democrats kind of try to make it sound like criminals are the actual victims and we need to give them preferential treatment. So there's a number of more bills like that. And then there's, of course, bills that, want to put our law enforcement officers at risk by saying, we want your name and everything else on your uniform. And, you can't cover your face if people are absolutely doxing you and going after your families. It doesn't matter. You're law enforcement and you should be uncovered. It's just a wrong direction for the state. And anybody who's watching the news, and I don't even care if it's, conservative news or liberal news, across the board, crime is up. And we need to do something to at least reset law and order in the state of Washington.
Were you as entertained as I was about the hypocrisy of people like Nick Brown and Bob Ferguson and all the Democrats saying, we need to unmask ICE, but can you please make sure that the identities of the people who are investigating things for the Attorney General is hidden?
Well, again, it's these hollow statements made by the Attorney General and former Attorney General, now Governor, who continue to use a double standard when it comes to the people they like versus the people that they don't like. It's not good for the state of Washington. I mean, we just saw the report that Nick Brown has filed, 52 lawsuits, almost a lawsuit a week. We need to focus on this Washington. This Washington has significant problems from affordability to law and justice issues. And Nick Brown, his eyes are so focused on Washington, D.C., he's missing how he can help fix Washington today.
I would say probably the reason for that is because he saw Bob Ferguson ride that wave into the governor's office, and he's thinking that if Bob Ferguson runs for higher office, then he can go to the governor's office as well, or maybe they'll think about him in a Democratic administration for some job like Attorney General of the United States. Representative Peter Abarno, thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it, and thanks for standing up for all of us in Olympia.
Thank you, Ari. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Kamala Harris's team accused Josh Shapiro of being an Israeli spy. I kid you not, this actually happened. But before we get to any of that, my friends, do you remember when the Minnesota fraud was first being revealed? They exposed all the people who had been talking about this for years, said that they had documents showing that the way the Somalis and Democrats were going to push back on any accusations of fraud was by calling everybody a racist. You remember that? I remember that. That was a pretty big part of this whole thing. In fact, people in the Minnesota government were actually threatened. If you reveal this, we're going to paint you as a racist. Because back then, that meant cancel culture. That meant the end of your career. That meant you were out of office. That meant you were gone. Finished. Done. Here's former Minnesota police detective Scott Dexter talking about what the Walz administration did to him.
They ignored your recommendations. They called you a racist, right?
Correct.
Typical left. I always say the left will tell a lie. Big media will report it. You tell the truth, they call you a racist. Exactly what happened here. So they ignore your recommendations. They call you a racist, but it even got worse than that. If you can imagine. They started investigating you. Is that right?
Yes, we were interviewed by an outside firm for a report given to the Office of Legislative Auditor.
What did that report look like? What did they say? They call you a racist? What did the report say?
The report basically questioned our investigative tactics, looked at how our unit was managed.
Even though you had 28 years experience in this particular area, tips and whistleblowers came to you, even though that was the whole catalyst for doing this.
Correct.
Okay. So they called him a racist and then had an investigation into him. I wonder if Washington used the same product management handbook or website that, Minnesota used. Maybe that's what it was. Yesterday, Nick Brown, Attorney General of Washington State, had a very odd press conference. It was basically his 1-year anniversary, and he's saying, look at all the amazing things we've accomplished. And basically all I got out of this press conference was, everybody's a fascist. Yes, the word fascist was used multiple times. I should make a montage of the amount of times he used the word fascist.
You think fascists are why he didn't win Survivor?
That must be it. They're fascist on Survivor.
Jeff Probst is a fascist. That's my new T-shirt.
Or maybe in legit elections where they actually make sure you can't
grab your torches and head back to camp.
Or maybe in, the Survivor elections where they don't double count votes. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
There's more election integrity on a Survivor Tribal Council
than there is in Washington State. Okay, so he does this press conference and talking about, the big thing I got from this was everybody's a fascist, and he sued President Trump 52 times. So 52 times in a year, that means once a week he sued the Trump administration. Bravo. Do we give you the slow clap for that? Just wonderful. How about the fraud? You gonna look into any of that? Oh wait, he had something else to say before any of that.
We're dealing with a president who threatens and bullies and attacks anything he doesn't disagree with. If you disagree with the president, if you don't bend to his will, you are going to be the target of his derision. We're also dealing with an administration and people leading his immigration efforts that operate with a level of vitriol, and I think in particular when it comes to people like Stephen Miller, a level of racism that is abhorrent. And the fact that the president is surrounded himself with a team of people who think of people that do not look like them as others, who attack people who have come to this country without basis, and then threaten states that try to provide rights for them is really, I think, a real undercutting of what it means to be an American. But my job is to defend our law. We will do that. If the legislature passes a new law, we will defend that as well. And so I'm going to keep doing everything that I can to defend the laws that protect undocumented people in this country until the legislature or the people tell me to do otherwise.
Well, wait a second. Your law contradicts federal law. Okay, let's leave that aside for a minute. What did he just do? Everybody in that administration is a racist, especially Stephen Miller. He's the biggest racist of all. That's really what we're doing here? Oh, wait, you're also squashing investigations into fraud? Well, it sounds like they're following the exact same playbook. Because a few minutes earlier, he was asked by Chris Daniels over at Como News about all the allegations of fraud and how come they're not investigating them.
What about the Sonics?
Just talked about transparency and accountability, and you and I spoke a couple of weeks ago about DCYF and the allegations that have swirled around that agency. Since you and I talked, there's been an audit to suggest there were $500 million in two programs that did not have adequate controls, that there's been $2 million in overpayments to providers, and that the state auditor went 4 years without any sort of provider records. Given that information now, would you call for an outside audit of DCYF?
Well, my understanding from what the auditors talked about both in the past and I think as recently as today, that there's continuing audits that the auditor's office is going to do. Our job is to make sure that our clients that we represent, DCYF and other state agencies, are taking those audits very seriously and do everything they can to make sure that they're not going to have that kind of problems moving forward. I do want to distinguish what we've seen and heard about. There's, every state government, every state program that gets taxpayer dollars needs to work better with those dollars and make sure that we're treating those issues seriously. That is very different in my mind from allegations of fraud, and we want to make sure that there's a distinction between allegations of criminal fraud and allegations of just how we best use our taxpayer dollars. So I will let the auditors speak for themselves. I think it's really important, and one of the things that makes Washington State great is that we have an independent auditor that can do that work on behalf of the public. They issue very transparent and thorough reports on many, many state agencies, and I think that work needs to continue, and it's really important that the state agency leads, the governor's office, and the rest of us take those audits very seriously.
Have you had any fraud complaints come into your office?
Sorry, say it again.
Have you had any fraud complaints come into your office?
Fraud complaints related to what?
Related to DCYF.
Oh, sure. I mean, we've all watched the news, right? There's been a lot of reports on fraud that came into our office. Most of them are what I would view as pretty baseless allegations, but we take those allegations seriously. We work with our client agencies. We get a lot of intake in our office via email and calls alike. So there's been dozens of allegations made, and it's really important that we work with our clients to look at those and treat them seriously.
So even though your own auditor said $2 million worth of improper payments, even though your own auditor said $500 million of DCYF money was at risk for fraud and not properly managed, even though your own auditor said they were not given the financial information from daycare providers for the last 4 years, baseless. Oh, and you're a racist for bringing it up.
Also, he implies he's got like thousands and thousands of complaints, right, or allegations of fraud. You have dozens of allegations of fraud. He admitted it. You know what office has dozens of employees? The Attorney General's office.
They have hundreds of employees.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got 700 attorneys. Maybe if one of them wasn't suing the Trump administration.
But there's dozens.
Yeah. Maybe.
But there's dozens.
I know. It's
That's
so many
12s. 12s of complaints.
Be careful. You keep saying the word 12. Bob Ferguson's going to put a Seahawks tax on everything. 12%. 12% on this, 12% on that. That's what's going to happen. So wait a second. He demonized everybody as racist. He said nothing to see here, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. You mean they're doing the exact same thing in Minnesota? The exact same thing as Minnesota. What did that cop say back in Minnesota?
We also encountered situations where federal partners were prevented from opening cases due to concerns about political sensitivities surrounding the Somali community and the refugee resettlement program. These decisions had real consequences, allowing fraud to continue unchecked. Throughout our work, we identified several loopholes that made CCAP highly vulnerable to fraud. Centers were allowed to bill for the full authorized hours, even when children were present for only minutes. Billing records could be submitted up to 30 days later, creating opportunities for manipulation. Attendance records were handwritten, unreliable, and often incomplete. And despite our recommendations, no biometric attendance systems, no electronic submission requirements, and no state-installed security cameras were ever implemented.
This thing was set up to be defrauded. This thing was set up to be abused. There were no guardrails whatsoever. And even without the guardrails, when investigators realized something was going on and reported it, Tim Walz and crew didn't want to hear about it and called everybody a whole bunch of racists. Nick Shirley, the 23-year-old with a cell phone behind the viral investigation of what's going on in Minnesota, was testifying on Capitol Hill today. Here's what he said.
Governor Walz has said he's been fighting fraud in Minnesota since 2019 and said the buck stops with him. However, how long would it take for you to notice $1 million leaving your bank account and not knowing where it's going? That's essentially what had been happening in Minnesota for years, as billions of dollars has been misplaced. And meanwhile, while people like Governor Tim Walz call people like me a white supremacist, delusional conspiracy theorist, he actually decided to drop out of re-election because I believe of how deep and extensive this fraud is. Thank you very much. Since my reporting, the HHS department froze over $185 million, and to this day, not a single business has been able to prove proof of legitimacy. How fast would you be proving that you are a legitimate business if you have children to actually feed and to take care of? You'd be sending in that paperwork instantly.
So if there's no fraud, why did they freeze the funds? If there's no fraud, why all the investigations, why all the whistleblowers now? Better question. If there's no fraud, where's all the parents out there marching in the streets demanding to reopen our daycares? Have you seen that anywhere? Of course not, because there's no parents, because there's no kids. Where are all the parents saying, stay away from our daycares? Nowhere to be found, because they don't exist. So what do the Democrats do? Let's burn down the city again. Let's go riot. Let's go attack ICE officers. We saw this in 2020. In 2020, after George Floyd, people saw the video. And if you didn't know George Floyd's criminal history or the fact that he was on drugs or anything else, you would say that's a pretty terrible video because you know what? As soon as you start putting embedded reporters in with the military, you're going to go, war's awful. Yeah, war's awful. Guess what? Things on the street, pretty awful too. 9 minutes of that video, pretty awful. Pretty terrible. Then you find out what the drugs were in his system. Then you find out how many drugs could have killed him. Then you find out the other issues he had. You go on, you go on, you go on. And then you could have a discussion about that. But instead, the left overplayed its hand. The activists overplayed their hand. What do I mean by that? It's one thing to have marches. And if you remember at the beginning, they were never peaceful. They started having the peaceful marches, but they always devolved into something worse. I mean, the first weekend that happened here in Seattle, they were looting downtown. They were lighting cop cars on fire. They were stealing AR-15s out of the back of cop cars. The first, what was it, like 2 days after it happened? In Minneapolis, burning down police stations. And people go, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm all for social justice reform. But why do we need to burn down police stations? Why do we need to defund the police? They overplayed their hand. Now, I wonder if it's the protests against ICE that are going to change anything, the attacks on ICE, or Don Lemon being a moron. Don Lemon and his whole crew of activists going into a church in the middle of Sunday services to scream and yell about ICE. I think that sends people the wrong direction. And you want to know how I know this? You know what CNN and MSNBC and the other outlets are not talking about? They're not talking about the church thing. Just like they want to say it's fiery, but mostly peaceful. Can we not cover this? Can we cut to commercial? It's like in the original Running Man. Cut to commercial before Arnold Schwarzenegger cuts a guy's head off, right? That's what it's kind of like. They don't want you actually seeing that stuff. Instead, it's, look what ICE did. ICE is terrible. ICE is horrible. ICE is wrong. You know what no Democrat's been able to explain to me? Why don't you want the rapists out of the country? Why don't you want the murderers out of the country? Why don't you want the fraud investigated? And again, Feeding Our Future, this big program where all this money was given to Feeding Our Future, this nonprofit, which was supposedly serving 12.9 million meals, didn't serve a single one. Where are all the parents going, where are our meals? What happened? Why didn't we get any of them? Yeah, the fraud was real. 100% real. There's 90 people indicted for it. I actually say there should be as many people indicted for it as work in the Attorney General's office. There should be hundreds, if not thousands of people, because people had to sign up to get the fake meals.
Dozens.
Dozens, exactly. There you go, Zach. People had to sign up for these fake daycares. They use real names as the fake students in the daycares, and people were getting kickbacks. Here's Nick Shirley saying what he found out.
I saw the video. We watched it, and it looked like there was a number of facilities like in the same building.
Yes. So in one building, there was, I believe, 3 daycares, and there was no children. And they were all receiving CCAP funding for separate daycares. There's one daycare we went to that one day it was closed by the government, and then that same day it was reopened underneath another name. They both received CCAP funding.
What is this, boiler room? Let's just move across the street while the other place shreds everything? That's what it seems like. So much worse than that.
We go to a daycare, and I'm instantly surprised by what we see. We arrived, and it was an industrialized building, and there was 2 daycares registered at that daycare, at that building. And the first thing I noticed is all the windows are blacked out, and there's no footprints in the snow of any children. There's no playgrounds or anything that would make it look like it's a child care. But above me, a sign read, open 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. But there was nobody there. The doorbell did not even work. And then we continued to go to other daycares, and we noticed the same pattern. No children, blacked out windows, and one daycare, a learning center, spelled Quality Learning Center instead of Quality Learning Center. They had received $1.9 million, yet with that $1.9 million, they could not even spell Leering right on their sign.
Yeah, ChatGPT is free, right? But Google's free, right, guys? We all know this. So this is how deep the fraud was. Now, since these stories broke, what are we talking about a month ago? My inbox has been flooded with people going, Ari, there's this daycare next to me, and nobody actually goes there. One I found most interesting that I'm doing more research on because there's a few questions. A place which was a daycare was later busted for an illegal massage parlor prostitution ring thing. And I'm like, wait a minute. You're getting government money at this site? Okay, I think your money needs a little laundering along with everything else in that place, just a little bit.
What, is the owner of the Patriots showing up? If the big game goes that way.
Exactly. But I'm trying to figure out, because I can't really follow it because so much information is not on the DCYF website. There is a place that has the same name as this daycare in the same town. They're hiding the address all of a sudden. Now, people have driven by. My favorite one, this same place. There's now a homeless guy sleeping on the front of it. A homeless guy. You think they would have called the cops right away and be like, hey, there's kids here, there's whatever. One time, I slept in, didn't go to morning services out the synagogue, right? Happens more often than I'd like to admit. But what happens is my phone blows up. This was on a weekday, not a Saturday. Ari, you got to get here right away. Ari, you got to get here. There's a homeless guy in front of the youth building where the school is, because apparently I'm the only one who could deal with this kind of stuff, right? Or I'm known for it, right? Yes, demonizing the homeless. That's what we do.
You can call someone else to deal with it. You might as well.
Call the pro, right? We know what to do here. Where's the hose at? So anyway.
Had you been there, you could have called somebody. Come deal with the hobo.
Exactly. I mean, look, we got rid of that guy with the quickness. With the quickness, as Mike would say, right? Get rid of him right away. That's what we do. So you think the daycare would have gotten rid of him? Oh, wait, nobody's going in and out of that daycare. Nobody. Because the people who drove by, as soon as I posted a picture of this place, people go, I know that one. I've never seen anybody there. That one had the prostitution ring in it or whatever it was. It was, guys, it's nonstop with this one facility. And according to my information, they may have gotten millions of dollars from Washington State. Millions of dollars from Washington State. This program isn't localized to Minneapolis. This program isn't localized. This fraud isn't localized to Minnesota. We're going to find places across the country have this problem, including here in Washington State. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues. Apparently, we had Kamala Harris's team, while interviewing Josh Shapiro, accused him of being an Israeli agent. That's why they didn't pick him for VP. We'll tell you what happened when we come back. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast. Right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder to download the KVI app and subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. While you're there, rate and share so that way your friends and everybody else can know how awesome the show is and join in on the party. Do you remember when Kamala Harris was vetting VP candidates? And afterwards, it was going to be Josh Shapiro, but they decided to go in another direction. And do you remember everybody said, wait a minute, he's so qualified, he's well-spoken, he's liked by some Republicans. Maybe she should go with him. Oh, wait, he's Jewish. Can't pick that guy. Can't do it at all. And then you remember her team's like, nope, not true at all, not true at all. Josh Shapiro's out with a new book saying, yeah, that's basically what happened. So you got Josh Shapiro, who, whether you like him, whether you don't like him, he presents well. He says some crazy things, but he presents well. He's not like Tim Walz, who just looks like a blubbering fool all the time. But they didn't pick Josh Shapiro because he's Jewish, and they thought he was an agent of Israel. I kid you not. Okay? So, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro wrote in his new memoir, Where We Keep the Light, that although Harris herself remained professional in their direct interactions, her team was really focused on his views about Israel. According to the New York Times, that got an advanced copy of the book because it's not out yet. Shapiro wrote that late in the vetting process, he was asked, had I been a double agent for Israel? He wrote that he said that the question was offensive and was told, well, we have to ask. I'm sorry. What? Okay. I interviewed with KVI. I never got the question, were you an agent for Israel? That's not something I ever get. You guys make a lot of fun of me about this stuff, right? And that has never, ever come up before.
I thought it was implied.
Yes, he must be. Where's my $7,000, right? I want my big payday for any of this. Are you kidding me with this?
I like that every federal government job, that would be the case. You're like, I'm going to be a national park ranger. Well, see, Doug, quick question here. Are you a double agent for Israel? It's like, aren't I going to be a custodian for like the vault toilets? Like, yeah, but we have to ask.
Well, here's a better question. Would a double agent tell you they're a double agent? Maybe you just want to get a better vetting process, so somebody dig into the background a little bit more and find out if they're a double agent. I mean, Kamala Harris was vice president. She did have the FBI working for her if Barack Obama could have Trump investigate.
How great if he was. And it's like, well, we asked. He said he wasn't.
Now, here's the funny thing. Josh Shapiro has been one of the ones who, let's say, squishy on Israel. He supports Israel, but when the Democrats get too excited about it, he tries to distance himself from it. But he proudly says he's a Jew, et cetera, et cetera. But this shows no matter what, the left will put the two together. Tell me again how anti-Zionism isn't anti-Semitism. So here's my favorite thing. They said he worked on a military base when he was a teenager in Israel. Okay, guys, can we explain all this for a second, just so everybody understands? You know when you go on like these mission trips and you're going to bring like food or whatever? Josh Shapiro, I think, was volunteering at a kibbutz, which is a socialist commune in Israel. And if he did go to a military base, it's like, oh, cool, check it out, Apache helicopters. Where's the hot-looking Israeli chick soldiers? That's what you do when you go to the military base.
I was going to say, what kind of Disney movie are we running here? Like Teenage Double Agent?
Hey, we joke all the time, okay? Not a real army. I don't know how we're so successful, but somehow Israel is. So, well, you look at this stuff here, and you're like, what are you talking about? You accuse the guy of being a double agent for another country? Now, what I find funny about this is I'm not sure if the New York Times writer read Kamala Harris's book, because she talks about this in her book. And as Zach has seen my copy of Kamala Harris's book, which has Post-its up the wazoo, Post-its galore, you might say, all over the book, the section about Josh Shapiro I was fascinated with. She said he was too ambitious. She wrote he wanted to be in on all decisions like it was a partnership. And she didn't want that. Hang on. Because when I read this at the time, I said, aren't you the one who was always saying you were the last person in the room with Joe Biden? Aren't you the one who was saying you were in on every decision? Which is why when they said, oh, he did this, you can't run away from it. So you don't want that relationship because you don't want somebody undermining you or somebody countermanding you. So you picked the idiot Tim Walz, who you wrote something to the effect of, I don't have it in front of me, but it was something like he had no ambitions for higher office.
It's a presidency, not a marriage.
Either way, I'm looking at this thing and I'm going, wait a minute. So you didn't want the Josh Shapiro who might have actually gotten you some votes. You want the Tim Walz. But it's so baked into the cake, this anti-Israel lunacy of the left. They actually believe that stuff. You know, I get accused by the left of being a double agent all the time. I get accused of the far right of being a double agent for Israel all the time. I had some lady come up to me at some Republican event. Yeah, a Republican event. This lady, she makes Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens and all of them look like nothing. Came up with a binder of material to prove that I was in on the Jewish conspiracy. Yes, you might say a binder full of conspiracies. Binder full of conspiracies. And I'm like, lady, that's not even Hebrew. What are you talking about here? This is how baked it is into the Democrat Party. That her own aides in the process of vetting, are you a double agent? Yeah, they'd really tell you. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss what's going on in the legislature and how the Democrats are trying to stop you from signing more successful initiatives. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, it looks like the Democrats don't want to hear from anybody about any of their bad policies, and they really want to stop the initiatives. I guess trying to beat people up and run them over with cars and pay paid protesters to go elsewhere and you name it didn't work because, once again, we've got two initiatives from Let's Go Washington on the ballot. But here's something that might surprise you. It's not just Republicans opposing these changes that the Democrats want to make to the initiative process. there's also some Democrats who are opposing it as well. Joining us now to discuss on the Warrior Injury Law studio line, Senator Jeff Wilson. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Ari, for having me on tonight, and let's get cracking on a hot topic you want to talk about.
All right, fantastic. So let's start with this. So as I understand it, it's not just Brian Haywood, Let's Go Washington, Jim Walsh, and Republicans who want to stop this initiative killer that the Democrats have. It's Democrats as well, including previous Secretary of States.
Well, let me put it this way. There is an initiative killer bill out there that I will say is on the loose. It's Senate Bill 5973, brought to us by the majority Democrat Party, and it's very clear that this is a bad bill. This bill is trying to put our voters and everybody in Washington State a little bit further on mute when it comes to enacting their constitutional right to tell direct democracy through initiative to us electeds. It's a very scary bill going on. That's why it's a killer bill.
All right, so why don't we discuss some of the things it's going to do? What is it going to do exactly to kill the initiative process?
Well, there's some fear out there. It's been proposed that if you pay signature gatherers, whether you pay by the signature or you just pay for them, somehow that means bad things can happen. And they have asserted that this bill will have the ability to correct fraud in the signature gathering process that ultimately turn into signatures. And I'm going to offer up to your listeners right off the bat with that first item. What is that? Egg on the face of the Secretary of State's responsibilities? These signatures are already checked and rechecked and verified by the Secretary of State. So there is a check and balance system. And when you claim that there's fraud, we should have clear proof that that exists. And Ari, I don't see it. In fact, I don't see it whatsoever happening. I see very few cases. And we heard in testimony just yesterday from both sides of the party, a Democratic Secretary of State, former Secretary of State Sam Reed, and we heard it from current Secretary, or a Republican, and a Democrat, that this simply isn't the case. These are very few instances, so don't be scared with the assertion that there's a lot of fraud going on, because I haven't seen it. I'm waiting to see it. I've asked for proof, but it hasn't happened.
Okay, so let me make sure I got this right. We have tons of fraud allegations about what's going on at DCYF, for example. And we know that their own state auditors have acknowledged $2 million in overpayments and other waste. They've acknowledged $500 million was unaccounted for. They've acknowledged they were one of the most danger-prone, fiscally irresponsible agencies. And they've acknowledged that they haven't seen their financials from daycare providers in 4 years. But they're saying there's no fraud there and accusing you guys of fraud?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, what they're saying is there's lots of fraud, but all right, there hasn't been any measurable fraud that I can think of or demonstrate to your listeners since 2013. There just simply hasn't been any fraud. And we know that there could be potential fraud on a modern existence with DCYF, and we need to get in there and do an audit. But quite frankly, don't listen to the sky is falling story that there's fraud, because it's so long ago. Some of your listeners may not have even been born in 2013.
Crazy stuff. Absolutely crazy stuff. Definitely the kids in the back of the car weren't born back then who are listening to the parents right now. We're talking with Senator Jeff Wilson about the new Democrat proposed initiative killer. What else does it do? Paid signature gatherers. What other things does it do?
Well, it also sets another barrier, another hoop to jump, that you've got to get 1,000 signatures first. And then you got to run them to the Secretary of State and say, hey, are these true signatures? And are they okay to go? And that gives you permission then to start if it passes. But remember, with this entire process, you don't have forever. This eats up a lot of time and a lot of energy and availability to move forward a message to your legislators. It really kills the clock. And the Secretary of States already have a system. Again, they're doing their job. They're not always the most popular position in the state offices, but I'm going to offer up that we do have proper checks and balances, and that's what happens. There have been millions and millions of signatures that have been vetted properly with no F word, Ari, no fraud has been demonstrated through by far the overwhelming majority of signatures that are gathered. And this is something that was proven by the courts, the right to do this on paid signatures. The courts have already spoken a long time ago that there's no real evidence that says you can't draw a correlation to just because somebody's getting paid that equals fraud. That kind of message is misrepresentation of the facts.
So we're talking with Senator Jeff Wilson, and here's something. Let's say they really want to work on the initiative system. You know what's frustrating to me is that you go out, you get all the signatures you have right now. It's been approved by the Attorney General. They wrote the language for it. It gets on the ballot. You have an election. It gets approved. Then the Supreme Court weighs in on it. I mean, look, from the Democrat perspective, maybe change that system where you have the Supreme Court weigh in on it first, and then their Supreme Court can kill the initiatives right out the gate, and we don't have to spend a lot of money. Wouldn't that be easier than all the hoops they're trying to make you jump through?
Well, of course it would, but this is going to be something that's a little bit more torturous. In other words, the pain, the barrier, the agony to put your voice on mute rather than respect your right, guaranteed by the Washington State Constitution for the people to have a right to referendum and initiative. These are things that are to be protected, Ari, never to be attacked and to impede or to make it harder to do. I mean, it's a pretty obvious message that the legislature just may not want to hear from you. And in order to do that, we're going to make this so hard, and you will be punished for the process of the initiative. And I'm going to tell you right now, rich or poor, anybody should have the right to do initiatives, and anybody should have a fast track to their legislature to say, this is what we think and feel.
In the last few minutes, we have with Senator Jeff Wilson. As I understand it, referendums are a lot easier to get done, but what the Democrats do is they make everything emergency legislation so people can't do referendums and have to do initiatives instead. So Democrats have pretty much already killed any way of doing a referendum. Now it looks like they're trying to kill the initiatives. What can people do if they want to voice their opposition to this initiative killer bill?
Well, there are a number of ways. We're going through the process now, and that's what happened yesterday. We had over 11,000 concerned Washingtonians weigh in for just a little teeny 2-hour meeting in state government and elections yesterday in the Senate. And 10,000 of those 11,000 people said, this is a bad idea. But we still moved forward. And I'm telling you, it was a meeting that I wasn't proud of because people weren't even had the opportunity to finish or even get to the stage properly because time ran out. But listen, the numbers don't lie. The citizens have said that when they weighed in on this, Ari, that we're going down the wrong road. But again, that's the difference of the majority party. We don't have the control to say this is a bad bill, stop it now. We have to fight to put this bill down, and that's what we're going to do.
I find it fascinating of how many people are in opposition to this who aren't just Republicans or supporters of Let's Go Washington or anything else. Seems like there's a ton of Democrats on board as well, and even Steve Hobbs sitting there saying, he's the current Secretary of State, he's a Democrat, saying this is ridiculous, you guys don't need to be doing this, speaks volumes. Senator Jeff Wilson, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for fighting so hard on behalf of all of us here in Seattle, over there in Olympia. Do appreciate it.
Thank you, and God bless.
God bless you as well, sir. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news headlines put a smile on your face heading into your evening commute. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And got this story here from young Zach, who found it over on Fox News. A woman who said she was violently attacked by her ex-boyfriend last year told a London court that her friend Barron Trump unexpectedly saved her life after she managed to call him during the assault. So according to the UK media outlet The Metro, after answering the FaceTime call and witnessing the alleged assault, the 19-year-old son of President Donald Trump reportedly contacted emergency operators, prompting UK police to respond to the scene on January 18th, 2025. So this is before he's son-in-chief again. This is before that.
Imagine if you're like the operator on the, hi, this is Barron Trump. No, it's
No,
not.
it's
That
not.
kid doesn't talk.
Well, how about this? Hi, it's Barron. Shut up. That's not your name. The woman, who cannot be named, reportedly claimed that her former Russian partner, 22-year-old name I can't pronounce, of East London, was jealous of her friendship with Trump. Is this a chicken-egg situation
Guy's
here?
like 7 foot and a billionaire.
I'd be jealous, too.
I want to take that guy's side, but I could see where there might be some
Did
feelings.
you hear that Ivanka was dating Tom Brady before she married Jared Kushner?
Ooh.
I heard that one, too, so just FYI. She added that she was raped on the day she called Trump and alleged that her ex-boyfriend, who first became violent 6 months into their relationship, had a history of assaulting her, including stranglings. I would get out of that relationship, too, I would just say. So, apparently, according to body cam footage from the day of the alleged attack, Trump was heard over the phone telling officials, I just saw a ceiling and could hear screaming. I could see the guy's head on the phone, and then the camera turns to her crying and getting hit. Trump reportedly attempted to call his friend for a casual conversation before finally receiving a callback, said the call only lasted 10 to 15 seconds, after which he contacted the authorities. According to the 999 emergency call played in court, timeout, by the way, did he necessarily know that? You have to research that because it's not 911 around the world. Other countries have other things.
How do I put this? I think that's a child of some worldly experiences that maybe you or I might not have just the instinct to know.
He's probably been to that airport enough that he sees the signs and knows what number to call. Anywho.
I mean, I don't think he's using the concourse restrooms.
Well, also, I don't think he's calling 911 that often.
Well, that's true, too.
There's that one also. Trump, who, wait a second, we passed that. According to the 999 emergency call played in court, Trump reportedly said, I just got a call from a girl I know. She's getting beaten up. After giving them her address, he emphasized, it's really an emergency. Please, I got a call from her with a guy beating her up. When police arrived, the woman identified their anonymous caller as Trump, explaining, I'm friends with Barron Trump, Donald Trump's son. An officer was later heard on body camera footage telling a colleague, so apparently this informant from America is likely to be Donald Trump's son. The female's friends with Donald Trump's son. She was on FaceTime with him when this assault happened, and he called us. To confirm to the police, the woman called Trump again, asking, hello, Barron, did you call the police or anything? He said, I had someone call the police. Aha! I called
and
you.
the truth comes out.
Hey, he still told the person, whoever it was. Or
Jeeves. I don't know why the butler's always
To
Jeeves.
be fair, he was at NYU at the time. Okay?
Okay.
Let's say he's with a friend and he's trying to stay. Let's give benefit of the doubt. He's trying to stay on the phone and call the friend back. That's actually the right thing to do in that situation. Notice when you go for CPR training, you know what they always tell you? The first thing you say, call 911 to somebody else so you can go do what you're doing. Technically, he's following what you're supposed to do. He said, I had somebody call the police. I called you guys. That was the best thing I could do. I wasn't going to call back and threaten things to him because that would just make the situation worse. During her testimony, the woman said, Trump helped save my life. That call was like a sign from God at that moment. The trial between Trump's friend and the Russian guy remains ongoing. While the Russian guy has denied the allegations, the woman said she has been repeatedly attacked, sexually abused, including awful things I'm not going to say on air, and that this Russian guy has been pressuring her to withdraw her complaints. The Russian defendant of New Providence Wharf, East London, has denied the assault, actual body harm, 2 counts of rape, intentional strangulation, and perverting the course of justice. Perverting the course of justice. I don't think we call it that. I think we call it obstruction of justice here, which just sounds a little cleaner, shall we say, than the way they refer to it over there in the UK. All right, interesting story still. But notice, why are we only hearing about this now? We should have heard about this ages ago. When they bring charges in the UK, things start being public. You should have heard about this ages ago. But can't hear about it because it involves Donald Trump and something good. Can't hear about it at all. Not at all. Anyway, here's something else, some other good news. Israel is going to honor Charlie Kirk with an award recognizing his efforts to combat anti-Semitism. According to statements from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office, the recognition is expected to take place at Israel's International Conference on Combating Anti-Semitism in Jerusalem, which I believe is next weekend. On the day of Charlie Kirk's death, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu publicly praised him, describing him as a lion-hearted friend of Israel who fought the lies and stood tall for Judeo-Christian civilization, called him an incredible human being, adding that his pride in America and strong belief in free speech would leave a lasting legacy. Less than a month before he was killed, Kirk addressed anti-Semitism directly on X, writing, "Jew hatred has no place in civil society. It rots the brain. Reject it." Following Kirk's death, Netanyahu again highlighted his influence, calling him a giant and a once-in-a-century talent who defended freedom, defended America, and defended our common Judeo-Christian civilization. Kirk was assassinated in September at an event at Utah Valley University, and we know that the prosecution of Tyler Robinson is going forward. I know some people who are very much looking forward to being at the event in Jerusalem where they get to see Charlie Kirk posthumously honored with this award, and I can't think of anybody else more deserving. Well, my friends, that's going to about wrap it up for us today. But fear not, my friends. We got a whole lot more planned for you tomorrow, especially when I come back from my trip to Olympia in the morning. I am sure I will have stories for you. And we'll have more exciting guests and other insane stories about all the politics of the day. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.